Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Noah, your favorite financial analyst, and today marks the second episode of the new series that I started on this YouTube channel, Monologue Monday. Before I begin, I would really like to thank the 9 previous viewers that saw the first episode, and I hope you were able to take something away from the video and apply it to your day-to-day life. With that being said, let's get right into episode 2. For the second episode of Monologue Monday, I wanted to switch gears just a little bit and step into kind of talking about personality types and career path chasing options that are available to you and might describe you as an individual in your prime working years. I've come up with 3 disparate categories as they're listed in the title as well. Of this video, and basically what I'm going to do is kind of go over what each category entails, on a surface level, and then kind of go into the pros and cons of being in each of these categories. So let's open up with the first category, underachieving. Before I begin ranting here, I do want to make it very clear that these categories aren't meant to slight anyone. They're not any kind of personal attack or anything like that. They're just a generalization, and they really more so focus on the economic standing that the individual is going to be in, rather than a question of their character, their personality, their morale, and how good of a person they are in general. So please keep that in mind. So like I said, let's start with the first category, underachieving. Individuals that I would describe being in this category are pretty much described as follows. So take, for example, you, not you personally, but anybody starts working, right, in 2020, 2025, maybe they're 18 or 19, 20, whatever it may be. It doesn't really, it doesn't matter too much. For the sake of this example, let's assume that they obtain their degree and this is their first job kind of in the real world, right, maybe in 2024. So they get a job, right, and they are hired on, and their salary is, let's call it $50,000. And they're happy, they have a job, they're paying back their loans, they have an apartment, they're paying for their car, they're paying for groceries, and all of the other shit that you have to pay for to live, right? And what happens is at the end of the year, maybe the last couple months, they start doing PRs, right, performance reviews with their manager. And talking about how good of an employee they were, all of that kind of stuff. And at the end of the year, the manager goes up to the employer or employee and says, you had a great year. Unfortunately, your pay is going to have to stay the same. And you obviously in your head that you're supposed to be getting raises every single year, but you figured it's been a crazy year. It's your first job, you're just going to kind of live with it, right? So another year goes on, right? So this year, the second year in the job, and at the end of the second year, the same thing happens. And maybe you have a few more things going on, so you kind of put it to the side again and say, you know what, I'll figure it out down the road. And then the third year goes on, and then the same thing happens. Now, is this completely commonplace at all jobs? Definitely not, right? But the point in this description is to describe a situation where the individual is kind of underachieving. And what's happening, if it wasn't clear, is that as time goes on, as years pass, right, there's this little thing called inflation that we're never going to escape, most likely, right? It can be low, but it's always going to be there, meaning the cost of everything around us is going to go up. So, by logic, if your pay isn't increasing for a number of years, your buying power, right, the amount of goods or the quality of goods that you can get with your money is also going down as well. So if you have saving goals, let's say this individual has saving goals, the individual that's making $50,000, and investing goals and so on, as time goes on, it's going to be harder and harder for them to make those goals because the cost of goods for their regular lifestyle is going to be going up as well. So what's going to happen is they're going to have to either, pick up a second job to compensate, or they could, spend less in their normal day-to-day, right? Or they'll have lesser of a quality of different services that they might do. An example would be if the individual likes going to a nicer restaurant maybe twice a month, right? Every other week, over time, they will have to either cut that down to once or if they will like the frequency of going out, maybe they'll go to a shitty restaurant 4 times a month or something like that. So those are the sacrifices that someone in this position would need to make, assuming that they're not receiving any kind of raise or bonus or anything on a year-to-year basis. So this is an individual, who's living this sort of routine that I would describe as underachieving. So let's talk about the second group of individuals. I would like to call this category achieving, right? So as you've probably maybe construed from my first description of underachieving, achieving is basically an individual who will get the job at $50,000 their first year out of college, and then the next year, the end of the year comes rather, and they're talk to their boss, and then the boss says, you know what, we want to give you a cost of living adjustment, commonly known as like a COL, is what I've heard. But so the end of the year comes, they get the COL, but nothing more, right? So they're $50,000 plus. I don't know. I really don't know what it would be. You could, sometimes employers will give you a cost of living adjustment, but it's not what inflation was. In fact, it could be like half. So I don't know what that's really supposed to be, right? Kind of a sick joke. But that's how it is, right? That's just how, that's the reality. So these individuals, they'll just take the cost of living adjustment on a year-to-year basis. Now, what this means in simple terms is that their lifestyle, right? The amount of activities that they can do, the amount of saving, the amount of investing is always going to be the same, right? Unless there's drastic things that change within their normal day-to-day, right? Maybe they move back home, so they don't have the apartment, the rent bill, so that's some extra money. But that would be the only case where they would be able to have residual income to do something else with. Otherwise, the cost of living adjustment is just as what it sounds, is just going to allow them to keep doing the day-to-day things that they do, throughout the next year. So that is someone that I would describe in the category of achieving on a financial standing scale. So now let's move into the final category, and this is very cleverly this is very cleverly named as overachieving. And as the trend suggests, this is a individual who will get the job right out of college. At the end of the year, they will be getting their cost of living adjustment as well as a little kickback, right? So this is nice, right? This is ideal, and it would be great if every employer implemented something like this. But unfortunately, the majority of employers in the United States and probably the world do not implement this. It's usually just a COL, cost of living adjustment, and a lot of times it doesn't even match inflation. So that's shitty, but like I said, that's the reality. That's how it is right now. So the individuals in this category, right? They work, for a year. At the end of the year, like I said, they get their meeting with their boss. They say, we're going to give you, this percent bonus or raise rather. So now going into the next year, your base salary is going to be the newest amount, right? Adjusted for the cost of living. And then also they get kickback, and there's many different forms that employees can get a little bit of kickback in, but maybe it's a large bonus, or maybe it is just a promotion in general, right? So instead of just getting a cost of living adjustment, you move from a salary of $50,000 to $60,000 or $65,000, maybe even close to six figures, right? That's huge. That's way more than cost of living. So it's a really big jump in your economic standing. So those are the three categories that I have kind of put together for this video here. And now I would like to get into the different pros and cons associated with each of the three categories. So now I would like to discuss a little bit about the different pros and cons that are associated with each of the three categories: the underachieving, the achieving, and then the overachieving, because there are quite a few with each of them. So let's start with the pros and cons for underachieving. Let's start with the con, right? There were a couple that I just described in the description kind of the category, but the main one being you are not moving, right? Economically, you're not really moving anywhere because of the, the no cost of living adjustment, the no bonus or anything like that. So you're really kind of your back's a little bit against the wall in this case, because what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to make pretty large, substantial adjustments in your day-to-day life to be able to reach, savings goals and investing goals and so on. And that's not easy, right? It's not easy to just find an apartment that's half the price, right? You can move into a box, with your neighbor or something like that. But it's just not easy, right? So that's definitely a big pro, or that's definitely a big con, right? Is you're pretty stuck, right? And I think a lot of people are unfortunately in this category, and it's hard to move around, right? If you've got a lot of commitments, if you've got kids, if you've got just a stressful life, it's really hard to apply yourself for different positions and worry about all of this stuff. You're just trying to you're kind of fighting day to day basically. So that's really a huge con for someone that is kind of in this category. A potential pro, and yes, there are some pros that I would say the pro with this is that things are probably at work at least are very consistent, right? So if they're likely not asking, since you're not getting promotions, your responsibilities are relatively similar, right? So you may get really used to your job, and it's just you don't even really think about it, right? You go in the morning, it's muscle memory, and then you leave. I think this can be mentally atrophying over time, right? It doesn't make you, it doesn't challenge you at all. So I think this is actually maybe this might be a con, actually, now that I'm saying it out loud. But for the purpose of this, we'll say it's a pro, right? We'll say that your job is easy or something like that. But the worst of the worst would be if your job is very difficult, and then on top of that, you're not getting a raise, or you're not getting COL or anything like that. So those are some of the pros and cons for underachieving. Now let's get into the pros and cons for someone who is in the achieving category, right? I think a definite pro is that you are getting the cost of living adjustment, so you can continue to live a very similar life year to year. It's not ideal, right? Because we know that shit happens every single year, right? And sometimes that shit is really, really bad, and it can be very expensive too. So, a minor setback like that can really be a detrimental factor in your saving or your investing and that kind of stuff. And I think the majority of Americans are stuck in this boat here, where it's nice to get the cost of living adjustment or a partial cost of living adjustment, but shit happens, right? And that can really set us back. A pro, you might feel a little good about getting that cost of living adjustment. It's always nice to kind of see, you know, 1 year you're this salary, and the next it's higher. I think that's definitely something that can keep motivating you. So I think that would definitely be a pro here. But like I said, there's a decent amount of cons with someone who's in the achieving category as well. Now, last but not least, the pros and cons for someone who is in the overachieving category. I think this goes. There's a lot going on here, right? Because in order to be a part of this category, you really need to be kind of career focused, right? Because, if you get to the end of a year at your job and you have your PR, and, let's say this individual, like I said, right out of college, and then they find out that maybe they're only getting a cost of living adjustment, you know what they're going to do? An individual in this category isn't going to stay there, right? They're going to, either go up to their boss or, email them and say, hey, that's great. I love the cost of living adjustment, but can I apply for a internal position, that pays 15,000 more or 10,000 more or 5,000 more? And then, maybe they do, maybe they don't. If there's no options at that company, and that, what else are they going to do? They're just going to apply somewhere else, right? So it'll be stagnated. They're not just going to get a new job at the end of the year, assuming that they don't get the raise that they wanted. But maybe that mid next year they'll be in a different position, and that's kind of how someone in this would work. Their year to year schedule would really look like that. If they're not getting the raise that they want or the adjustments that they want, they're going to look elsewhere for it. So that is something that I think would be sort of a con in this case, because it's difficult. It's very time consuming to do that, and it takes sometimes a lot of learning too, because you might have to learn new skills on top of your job in order to kind of keep moving up and keep chasing these, larger bonuses and, the bigger salary, the bigger salary, the bigger salary. What I think one of the pros is, for this is that you probably feel very good about yourself, right? If every year you're getting, either a significant bonus, or if that doesn't work, you're just chasing a different job for the bonus. You probably feel pretty good, right? You're learning a lot of new skills. You're at different companies. You're meeting a bunch of new people, and most importantly, the money talks, right? There's something, I think, about year to year having a substantial increase where you feel more empowered every single year. There's not a year where you really feel like you're in the same spot. You can save more or invest more, or you could take on a bigger debt like a new car, or you could, travel more, and you could do this every single year if you're kind of in this category, because the money's gonna be there. The only thing is that, the con of it is it's gonna take a lot of work outside of just your normal job too. A little bit of stress as well, probably, to kind of keep on this upward trajectory, right? To keep chasing, the bigger positions, the more prestigious positions, the more prestigious incomes, and so on. So there's another con that I think is associated with, someone who is in the category of overachieving, and that really comes down to, the work-life balance that someone would have with it, right? And there's, a lot of people out there, executive leadership teams and senior roles where that their job, although it pays all of their bills plus more, it really does become their life, right? So if you would like to take on any kind of, different endeavor or hobby or anything like that, it's probably going to have to be a no, right? Because duty calls at work, and you got to fill that role, and you have responsibilities at your regular day-to-day job. Okay, so now we are in the section of the video where I discuss my personal belief as to what the best circumstance or what the best category might be for, the average individual, something that the best categories that you should shoot for, and so on. And, my answer essentially, as cliche as it might be, is there's no perfect answer to this. Everybody's circumstances are going to be different, most likely, at least slightly. And there's no black and white answer, right? Being a overachiever, for example, for your whole life is not going to do it for you, more than likely. Just like being a underachiever or a achiever for your whole life is probably going to leave a lot of room for improvement, a lot of desired room for improvement at the end of your working career as well. So the answer that I've really ruminated on is kind of finding a nice split between the different categories. And essentially what I mean by this is using the first 5, 8, 10 years, maybe a little bit more, of your prime working years, right? So if you're 25 when you start working, whatever it is, at your real job, the next 10 years, to be that overachiever, right? To really chase, different positions, and, really try to go for, a really desirable salary, and the prestige, right? Or um, the titles that are associated with different jobs, right? Senior directors, leadership, and so on. And after you've reached a certain point where your income is really, what it should be, you can, you have a lot of financial freedom and security, and you're taking care of all of the investing needs and saving needs that you want for your life. At that point is when I think it would be a safe bet to pull back on the gas, right? And maybe let off just a little bit in pursuit of a stable position where you can have a very desirable work-life balance, and pursue, your other interest, right? Which at the end of the day are extremely important as well. We're not here, or I don't think, you want to be here just to be a worker, right? Working is the way that we make our money to live, but certainly, our interests and our intrigue with the world are something that I think we should pursue as well. So that's what I think. I think definitely, in the beginning portion of your life, really pursue, a nice income, something that's going to get the job done. And then after that, maybe settle into a position where you still have a decent income, right? But you're not doing, the $10,000, $20,000 jumps that you were previously. It's relatively consistent, maybe cost of living adjustments and so on. But at that point, you have everything that you need taken care of, and then you can start pursuing, the things that really do matter in your life, which could be personal, family, or friends and so on. So there you go. That brings us to the end of the second episode of Monologue Monday here on my YouTube channel. I hope you were able to take something away from this video, and I hope something maybe applied to you, or got your gears turning as to what you might want to do with your life for the next 10 years or longer. Thank you so much again for the individuals who checked out the first episode of my Monologue Monday series, and I hope you're able to enjoy this one as well. As always, if you have any questions for me personally, or if you'd like to take a look at the financial services that I can provide to you, I've left my email and my company website link in the description box below. As always, thank you so much for your time, and happy financing.